из вас без греха, тут пусть первым бросит в меня камень. Давайте на этом закончим.
New Year's Eve 1999, 1 minute before midnight. Every television in Russia cuts to black. Boris Yeltsin appears, face ashen, voice trembling. He says 8 words that stop 146 million hearts. I am tired. I resign. Vladimir Putin is acting president. Almost nobody in the country knows who Vladimir Putin is. 45 days later, the same unknown man wins the election outright. 26 years later, in December 2025, he is still there. This is the real story of how it happened, moment by moment. Each one big enough to end any other career, and each one only made him stronger. It starts in September 1999. 4 apartment buildings are blown up across Russia in 10 days. 307 civilians dead while they sleep. The country is sliding into chaos. Putin has been prime minister for barely a month. He goes on live television, looks straight into the camera, and delivers the sentence that will be carved into history. We will pursue terrorists everywhere. If they are in the airport, then in the airport. If we find them in the toilet, we will waste them in the outhouse. Crude, brutal, unforgettable. 2 weeks later, Russian tanks roll into Chechnya. Grozny falls. A nation that had lost all pride suddenly stands 10 feet taller. Overnight, Putin's approval rating jumps from 2% to over 80%. The first resurrection. August 2000, the nuclear submarine Kursk explodes and sinks. 118 sailors trapped alive on the seabed. The West offers rescue teams within hours. Putin refuses, fearing NATO will get its hands on secret technology. 10 days later, the hatch is forced open. No survivors. The Western press tears him apart. He was sunbathing in Sochi while sailors died. Putin calls a live press conference, eyes red, voice breaking. I take full responsibility. I will never trade our secrets for public relations. 3 months later, every single body is recovered at his personal expense and returned to the families. His rating does not fall. It rises higher than before. The second resurrection. October 2002, 41. Chechen terrorists storm the Dubrovka theater in Moscow. 850 people taken hostage. Bombs strapped to their bodies. Putin personally runs the operation from the Kremlin. Special forces pump an unknown gas into the ventilation. 129 hostages die from the gas, but 700 are carried out alive. That same night, Putin walks into the hospital, sits beside mothers who just lost their children and says, I gave the order. If it happens again, I will give the same order again. From that night forward, terrorism inside Russia becomes suicide. The third resurrection, September 2004, Beslan. 33 terrorists seize school. Number 1. 1,100 children and parents held for 3 days in a sweltering gym wired with explosives. On the third day, everything explodes into hell. 334 dead, 186 of them children. Putin flies to the ruins the same night, walks through the blood and debris, then addresses the nation. We were weak. I was weak. Weakness will never be forgiven again. A month later, he abolishes elected governors and centralizes power completely. Russia chooses security over democracy and never looks back. The fourth resurrection, August 2008. Putin is in Beijing for the Olympics when Georgia invades South Ossetia. He boards the first plane home, lands in the war zone, and takes personal command. In 5 days, Russian armor is 40 kilometers from Tbilisi. Then he stops. South Ossetia and Abkhazia are gone forever from Georgia's map. The West is stunned. Russia just used hard power again and won. The fifth resurrection, March 2014. One night, polite men in green uniforms with no insignia appear all over Crimea. Ukrainian barracks surrender without a shot. A referendum is held under Russian guns. 97% vote to go home. Putin walks into the Kremlin, delivers a speech that brings tears to millions of Russian eyes. Crimea has always been ours, even when it was drawn on someone else's map. The faster hits Russia with the heaviest sanctions ever seen. Putin shrugs. We have lived with sanctions before. We will live with them again. 3 years later, the 19-kilometer Crimean bridge opens, the longest in Europe, built in the teeth of those sanctions. The sixth resurrection. September 2015. Without warning, Russian jets streak over Syria. In 6 months, ISIS is driven back hundreds of kilometers. Putin goes to the United Nations, stares down the room and asks, "Do you realize what you have done?" Assad survives. Russia plants permanent bases on the Mediterranean for the first time since the Soviet collapse, and the Russian Navy sails warm waters again. The seventh resurrection, February 2022. Putin delivers a 55-minute televised address dissecting 30 years of broken Western promises, ending with one line: "We have nowhere left to retreat. Moscow is behind us." The largest sanctions package in history crashes down the same week. 3 years later, in December 2025, the ruble is the best performing currency of the previous year. Russia's gold reserves have overtaken America's, and its army has more real combat experience than the rest of the planet combined. The eighth resurrection, March 2024. Election day, Sonsi Town 28%. The highest vote any Russian leader has ever received. Putin steps onto the stage, voice calm. "We are one big family, and families stay together." The ninth resurrection. 9 times the world wrote the obituary, 9 times the grave stayed empty. Name one other leader alive today who has been buried 9 times politically and walked out stronger every single time. The story is not finished. The next chapter is being written right now, and the whole world is watching. May 2025, the Red Square Parade. 90 years since victory in the Great Patriotic War. The sky above Moscow is steel grey, but the stands are packed. For the first time in decades, no Western leader is invited. Instead, the presidents of China, India, Brazil, South Africa, Iran, North Korea, and half of Africa sit in the VIP box. Alt. When Putin steps onto the mausoleum, the applause lasts 11 full minutes, longer than Stalin ever received. He does not smile. He simply raises one hand, and 80,000 soldiers snap to attention. Behind him rolls the new weaponry nobody believed. Russia could build under sanctions, the hypersonic Vanguard gliding at Mach 27, the Sarmat 2 missile that can reach any point on Earth, the Poseidon nuclear torpedo that can create a 500-meter radioactive tsunami. The message is silent but deafening. The country that was supposed to collapse is now untouchable. June 2025, the Arctic Gambit. The Northern Sea Route is declared fully sovereign Russian waters. A convoy of icebreakers escorted by 2 Yasen Mermen submarines sails from Murmansk to Vladivostok in 14 days. A journey that used to take months. Western shipping companies beg for permission to use the route. Putin signs the decrees personally. Yes, you may pass, for a price. In one summer, the Arctic becomes the new Suez, and Russia pockets the tolls. August 2025. The Caracas coup that never happened. Intelligence reaches the Kremlin that the CIA is funding another color revolution in Venezuela. Instead of public warnings, 3 unmarked Il-76 transports land in Caracas at 3 a.m. By sunrise, Russian Spetsnaz in civilian clothes are standing beside Maduro's palace. The plot evaporates overnight. Washington wakes up to satellite photos it cannot explain. Nothing is said officially. Nothing needs to be. October 2025. The night of the long phones. At 2:17 a.m. Moscow time, secure lines light up simultaneously. Beijing, Delhi, Riyadh, Brasilia, Pretoria. Putin spends 4 hours on the phone, voice calm, speaking without notes. By dawn, BRICS announces its own payment system, completely independent of SWIFT. The dollar's share in BRICS trade drops below 30% in a single quarter. The White House issues a furious statement. The markets ignore it. November 2025, the Trump call. The first direct conversation between the two men since 2022. 47 minutes. No aides, no recording, officially. When the call ends, both leaders step out to separate podiums. Trump says, "We had a very good talk, very productive." Putin says, "We discussed how to stop the bloodshed. Solutions exist." 2 days later, the first Russian-American prisoner exchange in 3 years takes place quietly on the Turkish border. The ice begins to crack. December 2025, the Kremlin balcony. 0 degrees, snow falling in thick flakes. Putin walks out onto the small balcony above the Alexander Garden alone. No cameras are supposed to be there, But one drone catches the moment. He stands motionless for 6 minutes, coat unbuttoned, staring across the river at the city he has ruled for a quarter century. Then he does something no one has ever seen. He crosses himself, slowly, deliberately, 3 times. The cliff explodes. 400 using 24 hours. Comments underneath Russian, English, Arabic, Hindi. They are all the same single word, respect. And right now, as this sentence is being spoken, somewhere deep beneath Yamantau Mountain, in a bunker built to survive a direct nuclear strike, the next move is already being planned. The world thinks it knows what comes next. It always thinks that, and it is always wrong. The story continues, and the man from the 32 square meter apartment in Leningrad is still writing it, one impossible chapter at a time.